Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's episode of Scandal. And okay, so what do you get when you add Olivia, Mellie, and some hooch? You get some pretty awesome scenes in this episode of Scandal. I mean, let's face it, the relationship that we really care about in this series is Mellie Grant and Olivia Pope. Who cares about Fitz? It's all about the women, and they took control of this episode like nobody's business. And I loved it. And we all knew from last week's episode that Olivia was going to help Mellie write her book. Sort of like her memoir, and just sort of answer all the questions that people really want to know about her before she runs for office, and or to actually help her when she runs for office. And the only thing that Olivia really wanted to focus on in this book was why Mellie stayed when she found out that her husband was having an affair. And she's like, it's the only question anybody's ever going to want to know. It's the only question that everyone's ever going to ask you when you do any kind of interview, unless you answer it properly in this book. And of course, at the beginning, Mellie doesn't really have an answer, and Olivia just keeps poking and prodding. And then she finally says that it was working, and that her presence allowed Mellie to have some space and have some freedom from Fitz, and allowed her to be herself and sort of make room for her to grow, because everything she did was for Fitz. And then in turn, Olivia confesses that the whole reason why she left Fitz was because of the reason why Mellie stayed, because she was scared. And it was pretty awesome. Like, obviously, that whole revelation took longer than that to play itself out. But I love that it started sort of at Pope and Associates, and then Mellie got all mad and left, and then showed up at Olivia's apartment or condo, and it's the first time she's been there, and she was like, so this is the love nest. And so the two of them just getting drunk on some hooch was absolutely awesome. And then just revealing, just stripping down all the layers, getting really raw, getting really real with each other. And these two have been such great frenemies in this entire series that everything that they said just was perfect. They've both been through a lot together, and Olivia admitting that Mellie being there is what sort of helped their relationship, because she always knew she had an out with Mellie still being married to Fitz. And once Fitz left Mellie, it was sort of all about Olivia, and she just couldn't handle that. So that terrified her, scared her, and she went running for the hills. So just some great stuff there. We all know that Mellie is going to be a very fierce competitor when it comes to running for the Oval. And I'm hoping that she does enlist Olivia Pope as her chief of staff. Let's face it, those two are going to be a sick duo. And of course, Olivia, tells her that this is the chapter that you should put in. The reason why that you decided to stay was because you were scared, because you realized that after you did your whole filibuster that you could do basically anything. You didn't need a man to help you, save you. And then they go and they leak the book, because Olivia's like, look, this can't come out after you're running. It has to come out now. And so they basically leak it themselves, and then all these people are now talking about it, and it is pretty awesome. We even have the ex-VP reading it on her TV show. So, she definitely gained a lot of support this way, and I thought it was pretty awesome. The other storyline that was going on was obviously Lizzie Bear was trying to get the VP Ross to run for president up against Mellie Grant. And, sorry guys, still a little bit sick. So she tried to get David Rosen to play a hand in getting her to basically sign the papers to say that she would run for president. And Lizzie Bear is aware that Ross is, I don't want to say in love with, but has a huge crush on David Rosen. And so she's like, use that to your advantage, play up to her, use her, and get her to admit that she wants to actually run. So he takes her to Gettysburg, and they have a really super cute date. And then he kisses her, because she starts basically disparaging herself and saying the only reason why Grant got me to be VP is because they knew that I wouldn't be a terrible competitor up against Mellie, and that I'm nobody, I'm useless, I'm this and that. And then David Rosen jumps in for the kiss, and he's like, don't talk about yourself like that in my presence. You're great, you're this, you're that. And I mean, it was super cute. And those two I actually like together. Him with Lizzie Bear, no. But him with VP Ross, Yes, that is a perfect match for me. We also had like a really quick, bizarre booty call with Jake. I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but it is like Jake is on a whole other level right now, and I'm kind of loving it. But Olivia's got like her gallon of wine that she's drinking. There's a knock on the door. Jake comes in. She basically takes off her clothes, doesn't even say hi. He starts unbuttoning his room. They walk into the room, and that's that. And then they come back from a commercial break, and she's like, this isn't gonna happen again. He's like, yes, it is. And then he just walks out. Actually, first he says, I'm glad you could get over your issues with me or whatever. So obviously that's alluding to what happened last week when Olivia finds out that he is now going to be the head of, is it the Navy or what is it, the head of? Anyway, so he basically lied to Olivia last week, and he's been like doing all of his behind the scenes stuff. And so he's like, well, thanks for putting that aside. And she's like, this isn't going to happen again. He's like, oh, yes, it is. Can we please get Olivia a new viable love interest, please? I'm really tired of these two. I mean, I'm not mad at it, but I would like to see her with somebody that can actually give her some happiness. And are we just going to continue to see her rocking red now because she's all like the white hat's off? So it's like she's in red every scene now. Come on. Come on, guys. Anyway, so I thought there was another powerful scene in this episode when Cyrus goes to meet up with Mellie, and she's basically like, we got Fitz into the Oval, and he's like, we did? We did? He's basically like, I did. So obviously at the very beginning of the episode, we see Cyrus, and he's like standing over the president, and he says, I have to leave. And it's very like eerie, and it's like at first I'm like, who is that? I couldn't even really tell that it was Cyrus. And then obviously later on in the episode we get to understand what that whole scene was leading up to. And he lies to the president, says that his cousin died, when really he leaves to go to somewhere in Pennsylvania where there's a Democratic a probably senator who is talking to a group of people and talking about his platform and what he's going to run on and everything. And he just has this hope and this drive that obviously Cyrus is looking for. And there's a scene where Cyrus goes to the president and says, listen, I get that you want to do this interview with this Lillian woman, but like, we still have half of a year left. Let's like really push, and let's try to, we can still accomplish some stuff before your term is done. And Fitz is like, whatever. Like, Fitz is like, I'm done. So Fitz is basically checked out of the building. And Cyrus is like, well, I'm not going down with this sinking ship. I actually want to work with some new blood. And at first, when he walks out, I thought he was going to like run for president himself. But now it looks like he's going to try to back another Democratic candidate. So that's going to be kind of cool. So we're going to have Cyrus going up against Mellie. And I'm hoping that it's going to be Olivia with Team Mellie, because that's going to be crazy. And then we're going to have Lizzie Bear with VP Ross. So, I'm sure that there's going to be some other candidates that come out of the woodwork, but that was actually kind of cool to see Cyrus be like, deuces, Fitz, you're whack. So I'm moving on. So I like that. And then we had Huck, watching his son's soccer game, which was super sad. But, I get it. Like, his family is super sketched out by him, so they left, and he doesn't really, I'm sure he knows where they are and he can find them whenever he wants to, but what he has right now is video of his son playing soccer. And I thought that was a really cute scene, that when Marcus was asking him, about his son and stuff like that. And, obviously Marcus doesn't really know everything that's happened in the past, so that was really, a touching scene. But let's face it, guys, the real meat and potatoes of this episode was Olivia and Mellie. But before I get back to that, we also had this woman, Lillian, who was introduced as a reporter, and she was going to do a piece on Fitz. And at first, when I saw them, like, he enters the room, I was like, there's a bit of a spark here. And then later on, at the end of the episode, when she does go to do the interview, she starts asking him a question. She's like, wait, stop. And he's like, what? And she's like, I can't concentrate. Like, you basically just answered a question and I'm not even listening because I have a crush on you. And so he's like, well, let's dead this interview, and why don't you come out on a date with me? So, hey, if the president can move on, hello, Olivia, let's move on, okay? So I'm not really mad at that either, because they actually look like kind of cute together. So we've got that happening. We've got Olivia with some crazy weird booty call with Jake. We've got what's really important is Olivia with Mellie and them writing this book together and really just having great, great, great scenes together, getting drunk together, revealing some hard truths. And that to me was what this episode was all about. Just some really good material there. So yeah, they're really definitely setting us up for this last phase, which is going to be the exodus of Fitz and the entrance of who the new presidential candidate will possibly be by the end of this season, which will be very cool. We'll see how down, dirty, and ugly it gets, and yeah, can't wait. And we'll see where Papa Pope comes into play. He was not in this episode, but we'll see where he inserts himself and where Jake is going with his more than stealthy, rugged look these days. So, all right, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.